Hello, and welcome to a new edition of Education is the Best Medicine. Thanks for watching, and remember, community public access and community information is your best bet. Watch it and support it whenever you can. Today is a show again on a number of topics. We're ending out, and I want to say a special happy birthday to Miss Betty Reed Suskin. And if you understand the middle initial Reed, you understand she's one of the principals at that point at a shop called Reed's Records on Sacramento and Berkeley. It was a gospel, again, music, as well as performance gear, as well as just a host of things. And the music collection was absolutely phenomenal. And many of my parents and even myself had went to Reed's Records for, records. So I want to thank everyone. She had a birthday today, last week, and she's 103. And if you don't know about Betty Reed Suskin, spelled Betty, Reed, Reid, Suskin, Soskin, you need to search her like I did in Wikipedia. And we're going to talk about that. But the other thing I'm really excited about is collaboration that Education is the Best Medicine is going to have with Dr. Michael Lenore. He's a principal allergist in the Bay Area who's practicing on Summit and has been a clinician for a number of years. But he also wears a number of other hats, one being the Black Doctors Org website. I would say that you should go visit it also. We're going to be visiting a lot of things, right? educationisthebestmedicine.com, blackdoctors.org. For some we're going to be, a media collaboration, which I'm going to be helping with some podcasts and health minutes and again, moving both sites forward. Dr. Lenore is not going to not be there. He just wants to delegate more of the responsibilities in terms of media exposure to me. And I want to thank him for that, and his wife also, Denise Lenore. And I think I just want to say, you've got to vote. Please vote. Vote for who you choose, but do vote. And I would say that we have clear political divisions in regards to the direction of the country. Again, we posed these questions a couple of months back about what's an American, who's an American, the attack on Black women, and Black women as strong women. What does that constitute? So I think we've been really clear about the discussions around trying to navigate this very, very toxic environment. And speaking of toxic, get your vaccines. Please get vaccinated. We are post-pandemic COVID, and we're still there. I've seen a number of positive cases in clinic, and it's just something that's not going to go away. Get vaccinated, get tested. We're going to see an uptick from all the indications. They're sampling the water sources to seeing there's a predominance of this new COVID that as a deviant variant, as well as the flu vaccine. Please get it. This is just good health, good public health, good family health. A lot of the ads and commercials around the older population, myself included, I'm 69, getting exposed to viruses that are vaccinatable. We're seeing an increase also in whooping cough. So I don't know what the concern is, but we're seeing a renewal of things that we thought were gone. Whooping coughs. Who gets it? Well, people aren't vaccinated. So, and children aren't vaccinated. And again, this is our risk to our children, to our senior citizens. So please get vaccinated. Yeah, it hurts your arm too a little bit, but again, I got two in the same arm. So I got it done 2 weeks ago. And I wanted to come and talk to you about it to tell you, I didn't grow any hoofs or horns, or I'm not speaking in tongue or anything like that. It's just basically a vaccination. Please get it. You're gonna be in with family. You're gonna be in with friends. Um, that's a discussion that we all can have. Um, Now, back to the toxic environment. Again, please get out and vote. And just, I would ask people to be, if anything, honest. And as I think about that, I want to thank my resident board at Brian Rumford. We've had a collaboration. I'm the president of the board, but it's really the board that does all the work there. And I'm not going to mention their names because I haven't talked to them about this in the future about mentioning their names. So if they allow me to mention them, I will. But they are a working board at Brian Rumford in Berkeley, which is about a 22 unit facility. I think 22 to 44. I think it's 22. And just very prominent in policy and in creating a public-private partnership in regards to discussions around the housing complex. Building. What can we do to make the environment better, and to maintain the property. So it was always my belief that people, when they have a discussion, they will achieve ownership of that discussion and move the whole process forward better. Again, it's people generated. And so, again, it's one of the things I'm really excited about. Now, you kind of have to make decisions, I think, about this toxic environment, and particularly elected officials, and particularly quote unquote entertainers, or those people that we might feel are better than us. Well, I was listening to a broadcast, and basically it said that, be careful about judging people as they fall from grace, because if not for a number of circumstances, it could have been you, could have been me, could be anyone. So just be careful about how we disparage people at their lowest points, because one day you could be that same person and wanting some empathy and sympathy, but getting none. So because it's Miss Sotkin's 103rd birthday, I thought that, and she's still living. I was at an event last week hosted by her family, and there's going to be a movie about her. Well deserved too. It talks about some of the discussions about her trying to raise a Black family in Walnut Creek, which at that time was very racist, and they were the first Black family to move in Walnut Creek. And she always regrets that decision, but knew if she wanted a better life for her family, making those decisions would always be tough. So they moved, and she talks about that in her book. In this movie, to be previewed, if you get a chance, please view it. Please go see it. They're finishing up the cuts. We saw some initial cuts last week at Jeffrey's Inner Circle, which was hosted. I want to thank Jeffrey P. and the family. And again, Miss Howard was the host, along with another young lady. And so they did real well, really impressive. But Miss Soskin, and you just might want to look at it yourself, because she just has been a Renaissance woman. And I think that we always need to honor our African queens because they are so important in who we are and what we are. And so they have a great picture of a gorgeous woman, of course, Black woman. Some of the basic tenets of it: she was born September 22nd, 1921. At that time would have made her in terms of Article 102, but she's now 103. Detroit, Michigan, man, what can you say about that? Went to Castlemont High School. Shout out to Castlemont High School in Oakland. Shout out to McClimes High School in Oakland. Not disparaging any other schools, but those are the schools, on the front lines. Felt like Oakland High too, And now we see Skyland having its own kind of interesting discussions. But again, the public school environment is an environment that most of the folks that were educating went on to do higher education were educated in. It's almost, I don't have any problem against public school, private schools, or having private type like schools or academies, but in reality, the world is public. And when you have a public school system, the same people that you meet throughout your life, and I have, transcend through that system. And so there seems to be a real attack on education, on public education, and the fact that, when you diseducate people and miseducate them and limit their education or limit the books that they can read, it's quite astounding how people come out so prepared as they are. Her occupation, not only as a mother and a family and as a confidence, she was a National Park Service Ranger, and that's where she receives a lot of her accolades, because she talks about the entire system as it impacted people of color. Her husband was Melvin Reed, and William Soskin. So Betty Reed Soskin was born Carbonet, born September 22nd, 1921. She is an American retired ranger with the National Park Service, previously assigned to the Rosie the Riveter World War II Home National Park Service in Richmond, California, until her retirement on March 31st, 2022, just a couple of years ago. So she's been working, she worked well into a decade in her life, and then gave it a couple more years just to spank us. We should all be able to work that long and at the same job. How about that? Her early life. Betty Carbonet was born in 1921 in Detroit to Doris Lewis and Carbonet and Louis Brooks Allen, both Catholics and natives of Louisiana. Her father came from Creole background, her mother from Cajun. That's a hot mix there. Her great-grandmother was born into slavery in 1846. She spent her early childhood living in New Orleans until a hurricane and flood destroyed the family home and business in 1927, when her family then relocated to Oakland, California. Why is Oakland so important? Because it was a nexus for African Americans to go from all across the country. My father, upon completing his military duties in the Navy, settled in Oakland. My stepfather from Oklahoma settled in Oakland. My mother from Alabama settled in Oakland. Now, what we see now in Oakland is a gentrification process in which, you lose your basketball team, you lose your football team, you lose your baseball team, and wow, in the space of maybe 20 years, right? It's interesting that the Oakland A's from 1968 to 2024. And 1968 was a nexus, right? In terms of political, social event. Although I should remember more, my biggest memory is John Carlos and Tommie Smith running in the Olympics. God, that was a nexus to these two black men, and you should read about them. John Carlos and Tommie Smith, upon that action in Mexico, were ostracized and basically they tried to remove their history from America, but it was too strong, and it was the right thing to do. The right thing to do doesn't always get you what you want in that particular moment, but the right thing to do does settle the issue around it. You have ethics and empathy. So Ms. Soskin graduated from Cosmo High School in Oakland. Cosmo High School, again, Oakland Public Schools, way out, proud to be a part of that legacy. During the World War II, she worked as a file clerk for the Boilermakers Union of 836, an all-black union auxiliary. Her main job was filing change of address cards for the workers who moved frequently. And now all this stuff is done by computer, right? In June 1945, she and then her husband, Mel Reed, founded Reed's Records in Berkeley, California. So here we are, a black woman who becomes an entrepreneur with her husband because they felt that that was the best thing in terms of their financial survival, not to be dependent. And so the area of entrepreneurship grows and continues to thrive. That's the biggest motivator of new jobs in America is small family-owned businesses. They moved to Walnut Creek in California in the 1950s. Their children attended public schools and then an alternative private elementary and middle school called Purnell. The family encountered considerable racism as she and her husband were subject to death threats after they built a home in the white suburb. So this comes out in her movie. And just imagine, she's just one Black woman telling her story. That was the story of Africans in America. When you out of your place, when you get too uppity. 1968 is important, but 1955 is more important because of the death of a young man named Emmett Till. He was lynched. At 1 year old, a young man that should have been in his late 80s, if we look at today's numbers, was lynched. And it just wasn't him being lynched. It was men and women being lynched. And that's why Fannie Lou Hamer said she was just tired of being tired. Can never forget our history. It's so sequential to us. And the African American history is American history. And so could you imagine that? Trying to have a better life for your family, and because you wanted, because the society told you upward mobility meant that you got educated, and she was not. She was educated in the world, but she did not have a degree per se, which are most of the Black families at that point. They sent their children to school. And now intergenerationally, my niece now is a nurse practitioner. A couple of generations for higher education and a job that will pay her substantially more than we could have ever earned. That's kind of really, interesting, because that's how you get out of intergenerational poverty. Your children help. Your children are able to skip that. So her biggest crime was wanting to move her family to their own house, which they had built, and I didn't understand it built. What did they have to go through in terms of licensing and ability to bring stuff in, to build a house, and delays, and what that cost them. Because some people were not delivered to Walnut Creek because it was a Black family. So they had to go through a whole bunch of folks, and maybe he had to get folks and do it by hand. You don't know. She'd have to talk about that, and probably a little bit painful for her to talk about. But understand that racism colored a lot of the actions at that time. Her career, she converted to Unitarianism and became active in the Mount Diablo Unitarian Universal Church and the Black Caucus of Unitarian Universal Association. In 1960, became a well-known songwriter in the civil rights movement. So not only is she a mother, not only is she a new homeowner, not only is she an entrepreneur, she's also an artist. And they preview again some of her music and what she was feeling. She writes a piece in particular about moving to Walnut Creek and what that did to her children and to her. In Reed's Records again, it's still, the building's still there. Although closed and shuttered, it's still there. You can still see it. She did divorce her husband, Mel Reed, in 1972, and subsequently married William Susskind, a psychology professor at the University of California, Berkeley. In 1978, after Mel's health and finances had declined, she took over management of the music store, which led to her becoming active in the area's civic matters and a prominent community activist. Reed's Records closed on October 19, 2019. So too often our legacies go with us. How do we extend the legacy? How do we extend that? Why isn't Reed's Records still growing and vibrant and moving to video and whatever the medium was? Because when people have dreams, sometimes those dreams are the dreams of the next generation. And the next generation takes it for granted it was always this way, so why is it now? So, assuming Dion Aryan and Lonnie Hancock, two stalwarts in the Berkeley community political scene, and in those positions became actively involved in early planning stages and development of a park to memorialize the role of women on the home front during World War II. Those efforts came to fruition when Rosie the Riveter War II Home Front National Historic Park was established in 2000 to provide a site for future generations to remember the contributions women made to the war effort. And the discussion was, if you see the pictures, all the Rosie Riveters are white women. It wasn't all white women. Again, the coloring of history. And what she mentioned in the brief tape that I saw about the movie project was that she wanted to tell the black story because all was being centralized was the white story, the woke story, I guess you might call it. So her interest in the Park Service became an interest in restoring a historical context to that period of time, in which not just white women were essential, black women were quintessential. Rosie the Riveter World War II is front National Historical, Richmond Park, California. Ever seen it? Ever been there? I think I've been there once. It's a nice exhibit. Um, Again, but it always reflects a particular Slade story, and that story now is being changed by people like Rosie. Um, and I think that we have to be okay with women like Miss Suskin coming to the forefront and talking about this, and just seeing at her knees, at her feet, to hear what a person that lived it and done it, what that meant to her and what it meant now. And she was very thankful. They did a Zoom of her at her home. She did not come to the event. Personally, I can understand that because folks are vaccinated. She might not want to get sick, or may herself have medical challenges that precludes her from coming out and meeting more. She did it a lot anyway. She met with folks through her job zillions of times. People do get tired of doing stuff. So, reflecting her own role in planning for the park's creation and how she brought her personal recollections of the condition of African American women working in that still segregated environment to bear on planning efforts. Remember, this is still the discussion. Racism is still the discussion. Sexism is still the discussion. Not knowing a person's worth is still the discussion. So we have to honor Miss Betty Reed Susskind for her attention to detail and her not running from the fire, but running toward the fire and putting herself and her family in harm's way. But to tell the truth, that's what we're missing now. More women like her that are telling the truth. But most of the women are telling the truth right now. Clearly there's a difference in a person that doesn't want to lie and a person that can't stop lying and putting up stuff that's not real. You have to ask that, what is going on in a person's brain to have them in this time tell things that aren't true and they can't be fact checked. It means that they have a disconnect with reality and think that people are stupid. That's the only thing. And so often says she was the only person in the room who had any reason to remember what gets remembered, and whose function is in the room to do the remembering. In other words, if you don't tell your story, someone will tell your story for you, and it won't be the story that you want to tell, because there's benefits and drawbacks to telling the story. That's the issue with history. History is a discussion around who tells the story. If people want to remember you, they tell the story the way it happened. If people don't want to remember you, they tell you the story that they think will be good for them and not for you. You ever thought in slavery why people weren't named? You were a person, you were a sex, you were an age, is what you've done. Because that was the dehumanization. The dehumanization that you did not exist as anything but how we made you exist. If we gave you a name, then you could have a name. We gave you a partner, then you could have a partner. If we gave you children and then took them away, we could do that too. It's called cognitive dissonance. In 2003, she left her state job and became a consultant at the park she helped create, becoming a park ranger with the National Service in 2007. And at the age of 85, Suskin's duties included park tours and serving as an interpreter, explaining the park's purpose, history, and various sites at the museum collection, into the museum collections. Just imagine that. In 2003, she left her state job and then went to another job that was even more demanding. That takes a lot of guts, chutzpah, right? And Miss Suskin was and continues to be an interesting woman. She has been a tireless voice for making sure that African American wartime experience both positive steps toward integration and the present of discrimination has a prominent place in the park's history now. And they weren't looking for her. I always say that a lot of my educational experiences have been because I was tenacious and I had a son to raise and now grandchildren. If I had done it just for me, I probably would have failed. I understand that being the only person in the room, being from Oakland, California, being educated at Oakland Public Schools. How did you get here? Well, I went to Merit too, right? I got honors there, right? But how did you get here? It's a question I've had to answer all my career. That's 30 years. Ms. Suskin in 2005, at the age of 90, said, "Wish I had the confidence when the young Betty needed to navigate the hazards of everyday life on the planet, but maybe I'm better able to benefit from having it now." So, you remember, she's a young woman and she takes her family to Walnut Creek and married to a black man, Mr. Reed, and facing all those challenges as two people trying to raise a family, just trying to raise a family. They weren't trying to be no big stuff. They were just trying to raise their family and do the best they could for their kids so they could have a better life. What's wrong with that? Well, America is what's wrong with that. That's what's wrong. And if you're interested, she released a memoir signed "My Name to Freedom" in February 2018 and featured a feature-length documentary about Miss Suskin's involvement with music, also titled "Sign My Name to Freedom," began filming in 2016, and it still is. They're doing the cutting of it now. This is going to be momentous. It's going to be absolutely momentous. In celebration of her 100th birthday, the West Contra Costa Unified District renamed Wine Crespi Middle School to Betty Reed Suskin Middle School. You know, we can have a discussion about what his Juan Giuseppe's role was, but too often the people that are on our monuments are enslavers, or chose to enslave us, or chose to bring religion but really enslave. Chose to land on the land and declaim it theirs when people are already there. So Columbus, right? What kind of history can Columbus play when you know the history, not the history, not the his story, but the history? On March 31st, 2022, Miss Susskind retired from the National Park Service. She was the oldest serving park ranger at that time. She's been the Woman of the Year in 1995 by the California Legislature, Builders, Communities, and Dreams National Women's History Project. And she just got too much. Attended President Obama's inauguration as a guest of Representative George Miller at that time. Proclamation honoring her by Richmond Mayor as a treasure. I know what I would name her. And she proclaimed the honor her on behalf of the Richmond City Council in 2009. She received an honorary doctorate from the California College of the Arts, spring commencement. Remember, she could have been a quite a famous artist, but decided that being a parent was just as important. So she put her music away, and it was rediscovered just 20 years later. And man, I tell you, the other certain part of this is working with Dr. Lenore and blackdoctors.org. It's a website that I'm really kind of excited to be about. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up here. Let's see if we can pull it up. Okay, yeah, there we go. And so it's where wellness and culture connect. I told Dr. Laura I would start talking about it. Again, it's blackdoctor.org. It's black, B-L-A-C-K. It's capital letters to everything. So capital B, L-A-C-K, capital D, O-C-T-R.org. It's where wellness and culture connect. And a couple of things that were on tap were, again, excited about it. There was a vaccine conference, and it was joining panel experts to engage in conversation about vaccines. Again, I'm a believer in vaccines. I started the show. I've been vaccinated. I think we all need to kind of reconsider our healthcare issues. I want to thank the Facebook family for tuning in and plugging out. I'm a 5 or 10 minutes late. It's just, it's the colored person in me, right? No, it's the technical person in me. So some of the things on the site are, building vaccine, join a panel of experts for an engaging conversation. A cardiologist explains understanding your heart metrics. And again, these are videos that you can play. Here's one I'm going to pull up. 3 reasons why Black women are living longer. Let's look at that. So this is blackdoctors.org, and it's 3 reasons why Black women are living longer. It says, for years, the public assault brought in the notion that Black community is at risk for several health fatalities. Science even argues that we are disproportionately at a disadvantage health-wise. Black women especially have been the focal point of interest when it comes to discussing health issues. For example, the statistics show that Black women suffer from several socioeconomic factors, including obesity, being overworked, underpaid, overlooked, with stresses such as those, again, with mental health risk. Okay, I guess the way to start it off. So again, this is for us by us. I want to thank Dr. Lenore in regards to this site. And peruse through it just like you would do educationbestmedicine.com. we are really trying to bring us more of a nexus to information that's viable and researchable and data driven and again, factual in nature. It says, say for women of color, their health game got stronger. It says, faced with so many life challenges and disadvantages, most people make the mistake of assuming that our mental health is shot. Slowly, discussions surrounding mental health and ways of taking root in the Black community. I would agree. Black women have especially taken up the mantle and started conversations about managing and combating mental health. New research reveals that Black women are living to the average age of 78 years old or older, asked Ms. Suskin, that are causing an increase in what's causing an increase in our longevity. It all comes down to the power of positive thinking. I would think so. My mom was a positive thinker. You know, I can think of her saying, do the best that you can, and then put it in God's hands. I'm sure you can all think about things that, in terms of my household, in your household, things that your mother said that kind of just stuck with you. Now that we are in our 70s, in my case, I used to think, oh, she was just talking crazy. But in reality, she was very factual. And for less than a high school education, pretty doggone sharp. Acquired property, that kind of thing. Just a little ahead of her time. Her and her husband, Jimmy Lee Smith, were ahead of their time. My dad, ahead of his time. Don't miss a day of work. And I say that in the context of that, I just applied for my Social Security. And you have to have a reasonable work history in order to even talk to them, right? So at 69, I said, okay, I'm just going to continue work. I have to continue work. I love working. I love clinical medicine. Until I stop doing that, then I'll stop. But I love it still. It's still challenging, and still with the use of AI now, deriving differentials and really, really making sure that the person gets, complementary and complete care. So there's been a big strive in terms of discussions about mental health. And so for Black women using positive affirmations to get through the day, they're also educating themselves on physical health. When bodies feel good, so do our minds. The two tend to go hand in hand in many conversations surrounding health. And that's really important, because the flip side of that is heart disease is the number one killer of women of color, particularly African American women, obesity, complementary diabetes, not just diabetes, but elevated blood sugars causing inflammatory triggers, not just hypertension, but elevated blood pressure that creates an environment for, in the discussion around coronary artery disease, the moving of fat plaques throughout the vascular system to the brain, the eyes, the heart, the kidneys, the legs, peripheral vascular disease, kidney disease, fatty liver, vascular disease in terms of carotid artery disease and vessel disease. Aortic dissection is a primary issue in terms of heart attacks and strokes. We're trying to prevent those things. Diet is the key. And the discussion on health is our wealth, saving our money for the future. Again, not only just the physical, but the mental and psychosocial issues that need to be addressed in terms of our overall health to cease this issue around dying. Just imagine if infant mortality is the number one, maternal mortality is the number one killer of women, number one killer of women of color. What is the environment in which that risk to the mother and the fetus take place? Is it the socioeconomic factors? Is it the stress factors? Is it a domestic violence factor? Is it a trauma factor that creates an environment not hospitable, not only to the mother, but to the child she's trying to bring into the world? And financial health is a part of that. It says here, in particular, Black women are leading more discussion on inherited Black wealth. Ashley Fox, a former Wall Street analyst turned financial educator, says that it's crucial for Black Americans to start prioritizing and saving and investing money and resisting urge to spend it. In times like these, saving for a better tomorrow could be even more important than now. And so, I mean, it's a great website. It's blackdoctors.org. Is doing some really interesting uh, things, and I'm so excited to work with them. And we have to be willing to, kind of change uh, our thinking. They say stop the stinking thinking, right? And it's we have about 15 minutes left in the show, and I want to thank Believe Radio, 24-hour inspirational and gospel music station. Adamology, happy birthday. Continue to enjoy your birthday. You got a few more weeks left. He says he's going to enjoy it all month. Curtis, hey, man, the hour, right? Want to really put some good vibes out to Mayor Bree. Let's keep her in office. Pamela, you're a great district attorney. Don't change a thing. Keep it moving. Let's end this recall ignorance nonsense. You haven't done anything but do your job. But why you want to remove somebody just doing their job? This will fall in the law. That's why I'm supporting her. She hasn't done anything but do her job. That's what you want people to do your job. What we be getting is an over policing. And discussions around crime in Oakland or anywhere are just discussions. There's no more higher, no more lower than any place else. And what we need to do is change the condition where people want to rob in the first place. If they've got a job, they've got access to income, they've got a place to live, chances are they're not going to be trying to mess that up. If they don't, they're trying to get it. Special shout out to my granddaughter, my grandgirls. I'm gonna put some pictures up on my website. And I got a discussion around this brother that I want to bring to the table too. It's about appearances can be deceiving. That was the name of my housewarming. And that you can look at a person and make assumptions about him or her, and then not be totally untrue. And it's kind of around always believing the worst in someone and not believing the best in them. And what we have to be okay is believing the best in people and understanding the worst is sometimes a part of being a human being. But when it gets extreme, gotta stop it. So again, big things. Miss Hoskins, I want to thank her for being around the planet for 103 years and doing all the things she's done, and being kind of a beacon. One of the philosophers said they were looking for an honest man. Well, I think we found an honest woman in terms of Miss Suskin and her legacy and what she's tried to do now for her family, for African Americans, for African American history. She's been a Renaissance woman out in front. So when you're out in front, you need to get your flowers while you're still alive. So part of that was the event that there was happening, Jeffrey's Inner Circle. You need to know your history. You need to know the people that whose shoulders that you're standing on. Don't you understand that when she decided the first Black family to go to Walnut Creek, she was making an example of what she wanted other Black families to do? So that's why we have to honor her, because she was the first. Her and Mr. Reed started Reed's Records. Mr. Suskin meeting a very dynamic woman and saying, okay, we can do this. And him not telling her she couldn't, to stay in her place. So I think that we have to really kind of understand from a legacy standpoint, we can't go back. I now believe we are in an environment now. My granddaughters have less healthcare access than my sisters, than my mother, than her mother. Her mother didn't, because she was in Alabama at that time. This has only been a space of 50 years, right? Something that should be law. A woman's right to her body and her body functions and what she wants to do, not being told what to do. It's really kind of interesting that the folks that are supporting this mindset are really young men and women and young men of color, that tend to be prone to Trump, the vote for Trump. And they're going to vote for Trump. It's really kind of interesting that your idea of control is controlling a woman in her body. Maybe if that same men start to elevate themselves, maybe if those men start to re-educate themselves and rethink, because again, I don't know about the men in my age group, all have girls at some point, either a niece or a stepdaughter or daughters, or you see it all on the internet. What kind of world do we want our girls, our women, our teenagers, my granddaughters to grow up in? So we have to take an active role in this. This is no longer sit on the sidelines. And everything's happening, trying to manipulate the vote, trying to control how votes are counted. What's all this about? If you can't win with your policies, then why are you doing this? Because you can't win with your policy, because your policies suck. So then you change the laws. The only thing about changing the law is that people have to agree that that law is a beneficial law change for them, and it doesn't create a disadvantage for them. So when the Supreme Court ruled on Roe v. Wade, they created a disadvantage toward women that is being felt even today, with 2 young black women in Georgia dying. Go check it out. This is, 2 women of color dying, as predicted. And if you go through the racism in medicine, institutional racism, they were already at disadvantage. Women of color are #1 in infant mortality, maternal mortality, dying childbirth, dying because of hypertension, dying because they lack the socioeconomic issues from addiction, from whatever, from domestic violence. And then you tell them they have to have a child, but you don't want to support them. That's what we're dealing with. Anyone sitting on the sideline now, they're just as guilty. And if you're a man and you think a woman has to have a child, then how are we going to take care of them? And it's not as easy as a woman not having sex. I don't think it's that easy. I think men have to address the fact that if they're getting a woman pregnant, then that's your child. It's 2 sides to every story, right? So we have to be about the story that's right. If this is going to happen, you want this to happen, then how do we take care of all those women that will be out of the workforce, that have to take care of maybe a special needs child, because all the pregnancies don't go the way we planned them? Has to deal with the financial trauma of another child that they didn't expect to have. Again, control. Not going back. It's a plantation mentality. So I want to thank you guys for checking out with me. I'm excited about the collaborations. I'm excited about folks, online, on Facebook, us having real discussions now. Now, gee, I have to say this again. I don't have any control over what's being placed on my Facebook page. I try to delete as much stuff as I can I think is inappropriate. I just want to understand why so many black women now feel they have to be undressed to get attention. And not that they don't look good, not that there ain't another issue. It's just, but the why. And allows the veers to places where people don't want to go. And if that's your way of doing things, that's fine. I just ask that you do a disclaimer. They got you placed on this because you was just friends, right? Friends. You didn't think the friend was gonna have not having clothes on, because you just don't think that way, right? You have to. So it's just just put it out there. It's again, I know it's new standards, and I'm an old guy now, so yeah, I am. I'm okay with that. I just got granddaughters and daughters and nieces, and it's just you can't justify it if they're getting 2 million likes for not having clothes on. What I've been doing is when something comes up with that, I put in educationbusiness.com. This is where I'm at. I'm not trying to do anything. And then they never return. And it's like, okay, cool. But again, where we at with this? I want to thank you folks for a great 2 weeks. I tape on the second and third of each month. Miss Howard will be back next week. Maybe she'll tell you about all the adventures and me, having a dialogue with Miss Suskin and that whole show piece. I want to. My next show will probably gonna hopefully start having some guests come in. We got kind of derailed and misplaced each other, so you got to make changes and keep it moving. Again, I want to thank Curtis and Etymology. I want to thank blackdoctors.org. I want to thank all the listenership, all the viewership. You can see some of the stuff on YouTube too, so check it out. educationsbestmedicine.com. You put education the best medicine, my face and the pops up. So again, some of the content, all the content, we try to base in factual manner and try to leave dialogue for comments and having a discussion about the direction and tone. We want to move things forward. We don't want to go backwards. Please get registered, get vote. Vote's going to be intense. We have to make a resounding issue of ensuring that the people that we are elected represent our interests as a broad picture, not as a myopic, small view picture that's sexist and racist and phobic and all the things that you don't want it to be. So, with that being said, I want to thank everyone for listening and coming out and just doing all the things you do, coming to all the activities. Hey, I have the highest regard for Oakland and Berkeley and the Bay Area. Love it. Love it. I've lived elsewhere, traveled elsewhere as a part of my military duties. Fine, but it always brought me back home. And I want people to always understand that the negativity is just that. The doom and gloom is just that. It's meant to scare you. It's meant to make you fearful. It's meant for you to be frozen and not to react. That's not acceptable. Our ancestors acted. Our ancestors went on whose shoulders we stand. We're far above the issue. The story about my dad saying to work every day is that 30 years when you're applying to Social Security for whatever benefits you can get, you'll have it because you will put in the time. If you were late to work, if you didn't complete, they covered my first work they have recorded at age 15, either 12 or 15. I just thought, oh, okay. That's how far they went back. And at 65, I had enough time to retire, quote unquote, but I'm actively working and enjoy my work as a PA, as a physician assistant. So that being said, again, I want to thank the Facebook family for tuning in. Appreciate you all. We have a lot more in store. I'm really excited about this point in my life. I've taken some chances. I had some failures, but wouldn't change anything because where it is bringing me 360 degrees to where I think I should be and what I've been wanting to do. And I think this media connection with Dr. Lenore is going to be absolutely skyrocketing on a national level. And I'm excited about that. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Miss Howard will be back next week. Curtis, remember she gets here on time. And I want to thank Curtis for being here always on time, opening the place up and getting things set up. And to my future guests, hey, let's get with it. Let's get this done. I think also one of the things that I want to, again, say, get your vaccinations, take care of yourself. BlackDoctors.org talks about plant-based dieting. Again, making proper food choices, making food choices that are going to be beneficial to your health, and exercising and reducing the stress and being happy. It's okay to be happy. Everybody's angry and sad and mad because they're not happy with themselves. Don't let someone else make you unhappy. Strive to be the best person you can be. I want to thank the elder. Going to be on my site talking about his annual show. The elder, he knows what I'm talking about. Does a real good piece in Nevada. They're on. He comes on and does a spiritual talk, which I just really like. The young minister. I want to thank him also for lending his voice to the street, doing street work. And he knows what I'm talking about. I want to thank all you folks for listening and visiting in. Love the comments, love the information, love the sharing. It's been almost, 25 years, basically. And got a lot more to do. We ain't done yet. And again, part of that is being open and being willing to say you don't know and to being willing to learn. Again, everything is teaching and learning and teaching. You don't ever reach a ceiling on that. You have to be okay with learning. And I think that's the hardest thing for people to do, to change what they're doing and to open up and learn. Behavioral change is a harsh change to make, hands down. You have to change what you're eating, change your philosophy, to change your thought process, have to change being the person that you were 5 or 10 years ago and understand the person you are now. That's significant. Sometimes situations that you go into make you kind of go like things that make you go boom, but it's the best situation for you in that time frame. That's what I've learned. Again, thank you, and we will see you a couple weeks.